Pocket FM.
To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.
Quinn didn't think it would be too hard, but just practicing it, not using it against an opponent, he found out it was extremely difficult. If he projected thoughts to target the head and tried punching below, as soon as he thought too much about hitting the head, his fist would automatically hit upward. Still, Quinn wasn't the type to give up. As he repeated the move several times, he could slowly separate his thoughts and actions into two separate things. He didn't know whether it was because he was in the game or trying to split his thought into two, but he would often get headaches as he pictured himself using the charm ability while forcing the energy outward from his eyes. Your dedication has paid off. You have pushed your charm skill to the limit several times. Charm stat +1. Charm 13. It was the first time a stat point had increased without him leveling up or consuming blood. The system was clear that it was a fact that Quinn had continuously pushed himself while trying to learn the skill. Switching servers. Blood Evolver is online. Matchmaking in progress. Opponent found. There were myriads of abilities that could help you work better in this field, but nothing could compare to the greatness of the human mind when it came to creative thinking and engineering, which led to the creation of these fields. Nate had gotten one of these said people to set up a system in which he would get notified when the Blood Evolver was online. Recently, he had also added the new user Zombie P to that list as well. While Nate was relaxing with his best friend Sam, as usual, he received a notification. Nate immediately headed off towards the capsule. Quinn had been matched up with another level 4 user, but unlike the ones he fought against previously. This user was also wearing beast gear around his chest. As he turned his head around, Quinn made sure to look him in the eyes, just as the video tutorial had said. He activated his charm the same way when he used the Daze skill. Now all he needed to do was project the thought strongly, using his mind of aiming to punch the head, while the real punch would come from below. Everything was going perfect so far, and he could imagine hitting the person in the head. Then his fist made contact, but instead of receiving feedback from hitting the body, the punch had been blocked with the other user's hand, which was guarding his face. No, I thought I did it perfectly. Why did my attack go for the head? Quinn thought. Quinn previously thought he had perfected the Phantom Punch, but using it with no opponent and using it against a real opponent were two different things. With the pressure to perform perfectly and with the enemy standing in front of him, his concentration lagged at some point, so his attack failed. Eventually, the match had ended, and Quinn unsurprisingly lost. Nate was speechless. He thought he was the only person who had beaten the Blood Evolver before, and the one he knew now was a lot stronger than before. Once again, Quinn went into the next match. Nate stayed and watched carefully, but it seemed to be nearly an exact copy of the last game. After watching 4 matches, the Blood Evolver had lost 4 times in a row. There were a few others who had become fans as well, and they were nearly just as disappointed as him with the results they were seeing right now. No one would usually lose a match without giving it everything they got, and in the last 4 games, Quinn didn't use a single skill other than the Flash Step and the failed Phantom Punch. After losing 5 matches in a row, the only person that kept on watching Blood Evolver's matches was Nate. He didn't know why, but he felt that there had to be a reason for all the strange actions that Blood Evolver did in the past matches. The reason for his thinking was the fact that Quinn had lost every game doing the same thing. Only an idiot would do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. As the next match started, Quinn now looked more confident than he did before. His opponent was a female. The ability for now was unknown, as the inspection skill didn't work in-game. Quinn rushed forward as usual, but this time, no attacks were aimed at him. When this happened, it usually meant the person he was going up against had a transformation or hardening ability, the perfect opponent for the Phantom Strike. Quinn lifted his fist and aimed for the woman's head. As she saw the punch, a large spike appeared on her face. If Quinn was to carry on moving forward, then the spike would go right through his hand. She could see the punch rushing forward and about to go through the spike. A smile appeared on her face, but suddenly she felt pain in her stomach as she keeled over. Phantom Punch skill successfully learned. The fist hadn't hit her head, but struck her stomach instead. Quinn continued using the Phantom Punch in this fashion, successfully landing hit after hit while on the outside, Nate, who was watching the entire thing, was deeply confused. All he could see was Quinn's opponent forming spikes and blocking the attacks in the wrong places. It was clear where the punches were coming from, so why was she constantly blocking in the wrong place? The match had finally ended, and Quinn had been declared the winner, but Nate was even more confused now. However, after watching the Blood Evolver's next 3 games, and each one of them coming out in a victory in the same fashion, goosebumps started to appear all over his body. Once the system had confirmed Quinn that he had learned Phantom Punch, everything got a lot easier from then onwards. Instead of concentrating on the feeling like he did before, now all he had to do was think about the skill, and his mind would automatically do the work for him. Finally, the day had arrived. It was the weekend, and all the first-year students were told to gather inside the portal room once again. It was time to go through the orange portal. "All the groups present, please raise their orange scanning devices," Dell said, as he raised the scanner for everyone to see. "You will only need to point it at an object. You can see that on the screen. You can select the area or item that you want to scan. It will try its best to break down the information it has received and display it on the screen for you, although this is not the goal of the expedition. What you students need to do is look for things on the planet which have never been scanned before, and this includes beasts. In your teams, each newly scanned object will earn you points. If the item has been scanned before, you will receive no points. There is quite a range on these scanners. Before engaging in combat, it will scan every beast that is within your vision. The most useful thing about these scanners is that, even if they have never seen a beast before, it will be able to tell you what level the beast is at." After the explanation with the scanners was over, Dell went on to tell them how the expedition would work between the classes. Each class, together with their homeroom teacher, would be sent off to a certain area. When they reached their assigned space, the class would stay there for a while, allowing every one of the students to scan the area thoroughly. If they were to run into a beast with a tier higher than intermediate, they were advised to fall back and tell the teacher immediately. The homeroom teacher would then inform the generals, who would come to their aid as soon as possible. As soon as Dell's lecture was finished, the groups began making their final preparations. While Quinn was looking around, he noticed that Logan was already tinkering around with the scanner, no doubt making adjustments to the scanner's system. All of a sudden, he felt a soft touch on his shoulder, interrupting his observations. "Hey, do you need one of these if we're going outside?" Fex said as he waved a strange object in front of Quinn. It looked like a flask made out of silver. The only difference was that, on the facade of the flask, a skull that had 2 sharp fangs on the upper jaw was displayed. It was a strange design for Quinn. If you used a normal flask, the blood would spoil in a few days. However, this one is especially used within the circle of vampires to keep blood fresh, Fex explained. Fex then pulled out a similarly styled flask from the inside of his shirt and handed it straight over to Quinn. Finally, Dell had begun to call each group into the portal. The group took a step forward as they prepared for what was to come in their orange portal expedition.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
While going through the portal, the group made sure to hold on to the person in front of them tightly. Finally, the distorted space ended and white light could be seen up ahead. When their eyesight slowly returned, the first thing they could see was green. Lots of green. More specifically, giant green trees. "Please step aside to allow the other students to arrive," a loud voice said as he pointed to his side. Just like last time, they had arrived in one of the areas that had been circled off. The group went over to where the man pointed, and it seemed there were other groups of students standing by the side, waiting as well. Several soldiers were checking and coordinating with them, making sure they stayed in place and didn't wander off. "It's a lot better organized than our last trip," Layla said. The first thing Quinn did was pop up his trusty umbrella to protect him from the sun, but this time it didn't do much to make him feel better. The place was humid, hot, and sticky, and it looked like he wasn't the only one being affected, as everyone around was sweating heavily as well. The shelter itself was vastly different as well. In a way, it looked incomplete. Most of it seemed to be made from some type of wood and mud, although the architecture was impressive. They had managed to build upon the large trees, incorporating them into their shelter. But the thing that surprised him the most was just how many residential houses there were in an orange portal like this one. "This is one of the cheapest places for people to live in," Layla explained. "The citizens aren't required to pay tax on an orange planet, so those who can't live on Earth and can't even make a living on a green portal planet end up here." Quinn started having strange thoughts after hearing this from Layla. If it was true, those who couldn't afford a place to live on Earth had no choice but to be here, then why didn't Quinn end up in one of these places like these kids? When his parents had died, a government official had come over and explained to him that they would look after him until he was 16 and provide him with an apartment. So why didn't these kids get the same type of treatment? The students were now being led along to an open space, and while doing so, they could see the people from the shelter and children come out from above. They looked down on the new students, peeking over from the bridge. All of the first-year students were once again lined up in rows with the homeroom teachers at the front, while Faye and Leo stood in the middle of all the classes. They had come to an open area of the man-made forest. The trees had been rooted and dug out, and the ground flattened. Most of what they were standing on was mud. They could also see several paths from the circle, open area leading deeper into the forest. "All right, everyone, each class shall now explore a different path," Faye said. "The scanners will not activate until your teachers say so. You will continue to follow the path, and your teachers will tell you when you are in an unexplored area. My last warning to you all, you will encounter beasts on this trip. At what level, I do not know. I wish you all luck," Faye shouted. Fex, who was walking by Quinn's side, took in a deep breath of fresh air. "Nah, compared to Earth and these planets with all the bright colors, our home has nothing," Fex moaned. While relocating, they had decided to choose a mostly dark place, and they also needed an atmosphere that they could still live in. They had found the perfect place for vampires, but I don't know why, but it always felt strange to me. The vampires were indeed no longer on Earth like they were when the blonde man was a vampire. At some point, they had relocated to a different planet. As they walked, Quinn decided to use his inspection skill on every new thing he saw. The pathway came to an end, and now the mud had turned into thick, heavy leaves and short green plants. "This should be a good spot," Del said as he placed his large shield onto the floor. They were now in an open area. There weren't as many trees and vines. It allowed them to see from all directions. "Students are not to travel more than 200 meters from this spot. If you do, your scanner will notify you, indicating they will no longer work," Del explained. "For each new plant discovered, you will receive 5 points. For each new beast discovery, 20 points. All right, your scanners are on." At the same time, each of the scanners made a ding sound, and the students rushed off in different directions. "Let's do this," Layla said. "Let's get to the top for Aaron." Quinn liked that idea. He rushed off into a section of his own along with Peter and the rest. The battle for points was fierce as students continued to run around the area, scanning every item in sight. "Damn, this has been scanned already," a student complained. Some of the weaker groups decided to stay together as they went around. Although this stopped other teams from snatching points from them, their progress was relatively slower than those who roamed alone. The stronger groups decided it would be best to split up. This way, they were able to cover a wider range, while the other groups decided to do a mixture of something in between. Out of the strategies implemented by different groups, to catch up to the others, Quinn's group decided to do a mixture of the two. They decided that they would travel around in pairs. Quinn and Peter, Layla and Vorden, and lastly, Fex and Sia. It was important for them to have one strong member with a support-type member. The group had already split up, and while everyone was off looking for some new items to discover, Quinn noticed something peculiar. There were 10 groups, yet nearly every group had a single member that acted as a type of mule, a person designated to carry their belongings. After a closer inspection, he also noticed that these mules were people who had the lowest levels in their group. Nevertheless, they would still wander off and look around as instructed by their team. Wouldn't this be the perfect chance? Quinn thought. Right now, they weren't in school, and many of the students had separated from each other. If he was to take a sample of their blood and mind control them afterwards to forget what had happened, no one would ever know what he had done. It was the perfect crime in such a perfect situation. Blood type A positive consumed, strength 20. Eventually, Quinn managed to find 2 more students and he used the same tactic as before, getting him another 2 stat points. Quinn managed to get another blood type O, increasing his charm points to 14, while also obtaining another blood type A, increasing his strength. Faye and Leo were standing together at the starting point where all the groups had split off. Suddenly, a beeping sound was heard from their watches, indicating that one of the teams had asked for help. "I'll get to it," Faye said as she stormed off at lightning speed in the direction of one of the paths. Leo stood there, taking in the fresh smell around him, but it was quickly disturbed as another beep reverberated from his watch. "Another one?" Leo said. "Is this planet more dangerous than we thought?" He had hoped that perhaps the teachers were only being trigger-happy, sending out a signal prematurely. It was always better for them to be on the cautious side when it came to these things, but the fact that 2 signals were sent out at the same time concerned Leo. The group had managed to obtain 25 points in total. They also discovered and scanned a peculiar type of rock mineral in the mix. Still, they were vastly behind the others, and their weighted points at the end of everything would be negative 25. What they were doing at this moment wasn't working, and they needed a change of plan. The quickest way for them to earn points would be to find beasts. Ding, ding, ding. Just then, a few meters away from Quinn, one of the scanners had made 3 dings, a sound that he hadn't heard yet. The scanner pointed at what looked like a boulder that was stuck in the ground. The top part could be seen, and it had several areas of green moss growing over it. But after the student had finished scanning the unique object, he took a few steps backward. Panic was evident on his face. "A beast!" he shouted. "I found a beast!"
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
Pocket FM.
To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.